anyone who's still making a decision on that. And then I guess there's, if this proposal does fail, thinking about what does that mean going forward. So open up the floor to comments. Or questions. People can ask questions. All right, well, here's something from Uno. Yeah, so we actually get 40% of worker compensation is in DXD. It's just vested, and so that comes at a different time. But if you look at the worker compensation guidelines, about 40% of it is in DXD, and it's priced at the bonding curve price. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I mean, I guess the reason we haven't been doing that is because we're afraid of sell pressure on DXD. And I think, as someone said, like if you compensate people with tokens, like they're going to sell those to pay rent. So I think we'd be worried about people like needing to sell DXD to get rent. And I actually don't think, yeah. And I think the short-term alignment of like the price of DXD is, something to be concerned about. But I think like workers should be much more aligned with the long-term price of DXD.
I would like to ask a question for those that voted no. If we had another proposal that just asked the question, should we change the bonding curve or should we edit it? Yes or no? Like short term. Would you vote yes for that and then come up with a solution later?
Isn't that what this proposal is asking?
Basically, what I read, some that voted no, is saying because it isn't like asking a question that way, it almost saying exactly what should happen, like immediately stop the bonding curve. Like it's saying what it should be happening instead of just asking an open question. In my head, it's a signal proposal. I know it's badly written, and I'm not gonna get stuck on that. I just want that discussion to be going, and I want to know what people actually think, the rep holder think. Yeah, voting no on this might seem like we don't want to change the bonding curve. We want to keep it as it is.
I'm happy to jump in, but I've talked a lot. So if someone else who voted against it wants to talk. Yeah, I mean, I think what I said in my post is kind of the reason. I think there needs to be some explanation of the technical mechanics of this within the proposal for it to pass.
Is this with every proposal? Can I do a single proposal, or do I always need to come up with solutions?
Well, I mean, if you look at the signal proposals that have passed that I voted for, the ratify manifesto, like that, I think was kind of clear from the action there. The approve the worker compensation guidelines, that was kind of clear from that there. The working group 2.0, that was kind of clear what the action was there. And I just think like signal proposals, like for this one, I just like think there should be some explanation of the technical steps in this and some maybe like idea to rep holders. Cause like, I just don't like, it's just not enough information for me to vote off of.
I think a potential issue there, though, is if you require proposers to have like a detailed technical understanding of what they are describing, doesn't that limit the number of people who can actually make proposals to like, or allow like the technical people to be able to control the proposals just based on that?
Yeah, I think it's really important that we have technical communication to the community, so that's not the case.
Can I chime in here something? I might like shoot myself in the foot here because I might say stuff here that you won't like. So when I joined DXgov, I felt this elite mentality where everyone is an expert and everyone is like really good at what they're doing, and that's good. I love that. I don't want to be the smartest person in a room. I want to learn. So that elite mentality could be scary, and I sense it sometimes when I write something, write a comment. I might not be an expert in something, and I say, "Hey guys, I want to pause the curve." I said that, and I got kind of not attacked, but basically, people said, "You don't know enough about this. You shouldn't say." You shouldn't say something simple as, "Oh, pause the curve," because you don't know enough about it. But that mentality is actually silencing people, I think, and me including. I'm I rather not go into debate, but I feel that we need to do something about the curve. I don't know the exact technical solution about that, and I feel because like we don't want to silence people. We don't want, like, they don't need to be an expert to have an opinion. That's my like take from this. And we should be experts. We should be this elite, whatever. But we shouldn't expect people to be at our level on everything.
Yeah, I would maybe add to that. Like, for example, right now, I don't have much knowledge about bonding curve, and I just didn't participate in that discussion. Like, I believe even by voting on it, like, I should have some knowledge on it. Like, if I vote uninformed, I feel like I'm doing a disservice to, you know, that proposal, for example.
I agree with what both of you said, so I don't have any counter.
I'm really not involved with this because I didn't vote. I didn't care about this. But for me, if I vote, I would vote no, because for me, it sounds like just trolling. The wording is just, and I think we shouldn't allow that. That's only about the style, how they communicate. I don't know, you have to be an expert, but to be like communicate in a decent way, you don't have to be an expert. So yeah.
Agree.
I'm not voting. I'm not voting.
The wording in the proposal sounds like someone making fun of other people. Like, that's what I read. And doesn't, and like, how do you like get rid of the curve, halt the curve, like, or just make fun of people? Like, that's not the type of proposal you should pass.
It's not about like tell people you're no expert and you shouldn't bring in your opinion, but yeah, it's just, I don't know.
Yeah, one thing would be nice to actually see if these are really get a real feeling for what DXD holders think or do. I know we had a signal poll in DAO Talk a couple months ago, but since this has been kind of a reinvigorated discussion, Snapshot could be a really useful way to get a real DXD holder read on the issue. And now there's been some good discussion even from Thibault about a potential technical solution. And while I'm no expert at understanding it, or neither one of us are, that could be maybe a good place to move forward with including it in the proposal. So we at least have a clear path so this can be kind of wrapped up and done.
So, I mean, it sounds to me like the people who have voiced their opinion on no so far basically just would have voted yes if the proposal had been a little more well constructed. Is that correct? Would that be?
I think that's fair.
Hope, Sky.
Yes, but I am also interested in the actual workings of the initially designed bonding curve and how it works and all the different settings and pieces you can do to it. And it's confusing, which is the problem. And you know, I know Augusto's working on a document because there's posts about it, like on GitHub and maybe even the forum, but I think he's trying to make a document that makes it more clear to understand how it works. And my question to him was like, if you do raise the ability, the amount so that no one can buy from the curve, do the other parts of the system, does the whole system as it was designed, as Thibault designed it, I guess, does it still work? Does it still work the way it's supposed to work, even if you raise that buy price to infinite? And if the answer is yes, then maybe you can still accomplish the goal of distributing revenue through a financial token like DXD using the curve in an effective way. And that includes like you can set so that any new money coming into the curve, actually zero goes to the DAO. It just all goes into the pot. So there's all these different settings you can do on the existing curve, which we've never used any of them because we only started making a little bit of revenue right now. So we're not even giving it a chance. And so that's what I wanted to understand. And I hope that his document helps explain whether or not that's the case. But
yeah, I mean, I think that raises the question of like, what was the intent and what is the purpose of the bonding curve in the context of the DXDAO, right? Because if you actually go back, right, to work on some kind of a bonding curve solution actually started all the way back in like summer of 2019. There was a small grant given actually by Gnosis to DORG to build a bonding curve solution. It wasn't explicitly for DXDAO, but this was kind of the start of this idea of having a bonding curve, right? The next thing that happened is that Geronimo actually did designs for the bonding curve. And when we met up in Berlin in 2019 in August, we were talking about how we could do fundraising. And so we were just like, bonding curve seemed like an appealing way to do it. We had this kind of start of both the design and the technical solution. And this was, yeah, so that's kind of the start of the bonding curve effort, right? And then fast forward to April 2020, earlier this year, or March or April, the work was a little bit slow on the bonding curve because there wasn't really there was no funding in the DAO to actually like get people dedicated to it. So a lot of people, the few people that were working on it were kind of fitting it in between other consulting engagements, like including myself. I was working with Balancer on their front end. Then you get close to wanting to launch it, and we at the kind of like final hour in that context, we're trying to like figure out what to do about an audit for this bonding curve that DORG had been working on. And we, again, didn't have any money, so we couldn't afford an audit. And that's when it was actually the DORG developer who suggested using Fairmint because they had this bonding curve solution. We talked to Fairmint, we talked to Thibault. They had an audit that they shared with us, and that was really the main motivation for switching over to the Fairmint solution. So, I mean, from my perspective, and historically speaking, I think there was no like intent around like using the Fairmint solution because it was the Fairmint solution, or like Fairmint itself wasn't designing for the DXDAO. So if you look closely at how Fairmint works, if you go and read the continuous organization paper, it's fairly complex, right? And it goes into a bunch of things that we're not using today, that we haven't used yet, that I think personally probably don't make any sense for a DXDAO to really even go into. So, I mean, you can kind of go down this rabbit hole of the continuous organization as Fairmint designed it. And so I think maybe before we devote time and effort into really trying to educate people on that, I think we maybe need to ask ourselves, what is the intent to begin with for the bonding curve, right?
Gotcha. So that's good background, because if the continuous organization curve is not something that DXDAO chose, and it just, instead of just minting a token and selling a token, like could have just done an ICO, right? They could have just.
So we chose to use it, but the motivation for it was because it was an audited bonding curve, right? And it kind of, so a subset of what it did met what we were trying to do, and it was audited, right? I maintain, I think the bonding curve was successful. Right? I think it was a good way for DXgov to start the fundraising and allowed it to happen over the whole summer, right? Like I think that worked out quite well. I mean, I think the question is like, what, has it served its purpose? Or like generally, like what do we actually want out of it?
But so you're saying in the beginning, DXgov just wanted to raise, like, let's say $5 million. It didn't care about a bonding curve. It just wanted $5 million.
No, the goals from the beginning were to have a continuous fundraiser, but it was just to have a bonding curve where you could like buy and sell the token into.
Well, okay, buying and
allow
selling.
Dividend distribution. Now, if you look, like now the Fairmint stuff actually has more features than that, right?
Yeah, so you're saying the goal was to have a curve, a bonding curve like Avegache's curve, which allows you to buy and sell.
Yeah, it's to raise money and allow dividend distribution and the ability to like also sell the token into that curve. Those are like the things.
But that's a goal to the whole thing to have the bonding curve is allow buys and sells. That's how bonding curve works, right? To allow buying and selling.
Well, so I don't know if we ever even really got deep into. I'm just saying that my point here is that Fairmint was not designed for DXgov, and it's fairly complex. So I think we need to ask ourselves, what do we actually want out of this thing?
But the DXgov didn't sell a token just to raise some money. It specifically chose a curve because it wanted to allow buying and selling. It could have just printed a token and sold it, minted a token, right? But that's why I kind of made the assumption that it wanted to distribute revenue through the buying and selling of the curve. And I get that their curve has like some extra features. I think Avegache's bonding curve is much simpler. So there could be like a switch to that type of curve if you still want a curve where you can buy and sell. But if you don't want a curve, and just wanted to raise money, then we could just get rid of the entire thing almost and just cap the supply.
What are some other thoughts? Anyone, people who have not spoken yet or thinking?
Yeah, hey, we've seen that basically in terms of rep holders, we're pretty much almost 50% split on this topic. So for me, I would pretty much want to see a proper signal vote by DXD holders and go from there.
I mean, I plan to make another DAO Talk post to basically make this proposal in a well-constructed way. And I think that should dispel any concerns about, technical risks or just like, understanding of how it works. And so then I think if I do this, it really should come down to whether people want to pause it or not. So, I mean, yeah, like I think that should handle that. I mean, personally, I don't think it's a great look for the collective if there's a lot of discussion on pausing it and there really isn't a good substantiated answer for why it should be no, other than like, oh, it just wasn't written quite correctly.
Wait, what you said? The reason wasn't sufficient. That it was worded.
I'm not hearing I'm not hearing a good argument for no here, other than that it wasn't worded correctly. And I'm going to go address that contention, right? I'm going to make a new proposal, assuming that this does fail. If it goes yes, then I don't see a need to do that. But like, assuming that this goes to no, I'm going to create a detailed proposal on how this pause can be implemented and what the potential impacts of that could be, right? And then I'm going to repropose it. So I think I'm just saying, like, I don't think it's a great look, and this is toward Nizette's point. I don't think it's really good optics that DXD holders are kind of like evidently don't have a voice here, and that's something that we're trying to work on, right? Like that's a known problem, and that this has been a hotly contested topic in the past, right? There's 100+ comments on this DAO Talk thread. And now a proposal finally gets made and boosted. And the only reason it's not passing is on technicalities, is what I'm hearing. And I don't think that's great optics when we're trying to bring DXD holders into the fold.
I mean, that's not the case to what I was just saying, though, is DXDAO chose a bonding curve to allow buys and sells instead of just minting a token and selling it to raise money. Now, if we pause the one side of it, that's a change. The DXDAO no longer wants a bonding curve, which is how bonding curves work, where you can buy and sell. If the DXDAO no longer wants a bonding curve where you can buy and sell, did it want one in the beginning, or did it just use that because it was convenient?
I mean, I can only speak as somebody who was involved in that process from very early on, that like the intent was the main goal was to raise money, right? The chosen way of how to do it was a bonding curve from like early on. Like whether to say that the DXDAO actually wants to have this, or like, I mean, that's, I don't know. It wasn't a very active community early on. Like
when the bonding curve was chosen, that implies that there's a desire for buys and sells, right?
You can interpret it however you want, right? That's up to the individual to interpret. I try to give some historical context of how we got here, but I mean, I don't think there's like a clear mandate or consensus from like rep holders or anybody really, like as to that being one of the features that is needed or what. Like I think it's kind of obvious we need the ability to raise money, right?
I mean,
we need the way to distribute.
People are calling the way IDOs on Mesa were done. They're saying, "Oh, we sold it using a bonding curve." When those aren't really bonding curves; those are shapes of curves that increase in price, right? That's not a bonding curve where you buy and sell, like Simon, has been talking about for many years now. But like to not just sell at a higher price over like a curve, a shape of a curve. That's very different than like choosing a bonding curve where you can have buys and sells. That's a huge difference.
Yeah, I think like, I guess my decisions are not, voting decisions are not always going to be dependent on like the intent of DXDAO in the past. Like I think that's a factor, but I think like I'm looking at things that are existing right now and how they are. I think consensus is really tough. Like getting people to agree on the same thing and the same wording is really tough. And I think that we can get better at doing that. And I think we should be open to suggestions for that. That's one of the reasons why I think the proposal process is really important to have like a feedback period on and to have this conversations in the forums. And I think if this proposal was submitted, for instance, in the forums, like I think there would have been good feedback. And then maybe we would craft it into something else. Now, of course, to Skye's point, no one really cares about things if they show up in the forum. So we have to kind of think about that. But I think consensus is really hard. And that's what makes this one so difficult, is because even though there's a lot of initiative to change, it takes a lot of work to get everyone to move into the same direction. And I think that's what we're trying to do here, is build consensus.
There are also really good arguments made on both sides that have now developed because this proposal was put on Alchemy. So now it seems like there's more of a fleshed out argument basis. And, I think it could be a little bit of self-bias where it's like maybe something seems like a technicality to one person, but to someone else, that could be a very big point to reason for not voting for something, like not having a clear solution in something that, we're pushing on chain voting so much. And of course, this is just kind of a signal. Like it's not affecting anything, even if it just for this one vote, but still it would be nice to at least have it a little bit more clear and sussed out.
I do have another question where if there is, since the DAO owns the bonding curve, the current setup, any change to it or modification will require another proposal, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. So there's going to be.
This does not implement. This proposal is only a signal, right? It doesn't affect any change, right? So, So to me, that's a reason why it shouldn't be held up on like what I kind of view as a technicality of the wording, right? Or like, maybe some lack of clarity is because
this proposal is written well.
What?
Do you think this proposal is written well? I'm like worried about.
No, I said it's not written well. I said that last time.
I think we should set our proposals to much higher standards than this. Much higher standards.
Yeah, but what I'm thinking, what I'm picturing is, even if this passed, like a bunch of work is done, a technical solution is like built, or like how it's going to change is built, and then that proposal gets put up, and then there's going to be a whole new vote, and that proposal could pass or fail, right? So still there's going to be, even if this proposal passes or fails, that work and that next proposal still has to happen.
Exactly. It's still a signal proposal, right? So like if there was some kind of technical problem with actually pausing it, if it was like impossible, or there's something that's not like realized yet, right? Then that could stop it later on, right? Or the signal could be reversed.
So this proposal should really be, should we dedicate a certain amount of resources and money toward coming up with the actual real proposal that technically is going to adjust the bonding curve?
I mean, to me, that's sort of implied, right? If like a DXD holder, a community member comes to Alchemy and makes a proposal that says, pause the bonding curve now, and they don't really know how that would work. I think if that passes, that like is basically signal for the technical people to evaluate that on the technical
even if it includes some resources and amount of money and time to like focus on it, should the DAO focus on that for the next 3 months or 2 months or 1 month with 3 people and this much money? That would be an easier vote, I think.
I think we can find consensus on this. I think it's just like we have to like do the work in writing something and getting it. But I think, yeah. Uno, do you have any other thoughts? You can type if you had any. So I guess it probably won't. I mean, so we have, I'm just going the timeline here. So you can't change your vote. So the votes are there, and I guess with it's like 7.4%. So there are some additional, there are some rep holders that could come in there and change this, but that'll be in a day and 3 hours. So I guess the question is, do we want to wait for the outcome of this to decide, kind of course of action, or do we want to start moving on that now?
I think either way, it should be looked into. The question is who and how much resources is that going to take?
Yeah, I think how our proposal is interpreted and that kind of the precedent on that, I think, is also relevant.
Well, whether this passes or fail, even if this fails, John's going to spend some time making a better proposal, and if it passes, John and other people, well, not just John, but the community can spend time making a better proposal or looking into how this can happen. So either way, like this pass or fail, this doesn't actually change that much. Like we should still look into this, right?
So you're saying that the site markets aren't going to change for the price of DXD, or they shouldn't?
Well, there's another, the impact markets, but there's another problem with this is someone who had created this proposal chose a resolution date, right? And these extension times on these markets make the make it extend, and if someone votes again, it can get extended. It can keep getting extended, right? It's making that market invalid, unfortunately. So I don't think you can look at the numbers of it anymore. It's a unique scenario, but quite unfortunate, and not much different than Biden-Trump.
Well, I mean, the resolution date probably should have been set later on the market, right?
Yeah, we recommend 6 days, but theoretically this could be extended 3 times and go past 6 days as well.
With the overtime.
Well, yeah.
Cool. That's it, I think, for this. I don't know if there's any other questions or comments. I'm happy to stick around a bit longer, but I think that we have some we're developing signal here. Yeah. Yeah, I think Uno has a good point. And this, I think, about signal proposals in general. Like, I think signal proposals are only and what they mean are only established through precedent. It's only like when we have these cases where there's something voted upon and then it's like executed upon that we'll understand like how things are interpreted and how things are done. So I think it's always important to remember that when we're making these decisions, governance decisions, there's also a precedent they set that will affect how we conduct things in the future. Cool. All right. That's it. Have a good day.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Happy holidays, guys.
Bye. Happy holidays.
Bye.
Bye bye.
Bye.